Gather round, gang. Today is the day I live. What is a woman? The answer? Anyone shorter than me. The relevance? None, because they're all gone. Sweet lemon tea, a fatal chomp. I've got the joy down in my heart. If what I'm saying to you right now makes zero sense, congratulations, you haven't played Lisa yet. I recommend keeping it that way if you value your sanity. Lisa is an Earthbound-like retro RPG, a completely unique idea, incubated and hatched by Dingaling Studios, aka Austin Jorgensen, indie game developer and actual real-life martial arts master. I'm not making that part up. That's actually him right there. In Lisa, you are Brad. You're fat, you're bald, and your fit is whack as hell. But there's one thing you've got going for you, and that's your adoptive daughter, Buddy, a feral creature born from the depths of hell that the whole world now wants to have relations with. You see, Lisa takes place in a post-apocalyptic world with 0 women. What happened to them? Where did they go? I don't know. They just left, I guess. It's an incel's wet dream and his worst nightmare all at once. To be fair, if I were a woman in a post-apocalyptic world, I would also do my best to vanish out of thin air. As the one singular female who hasn't managed to achieve total material disintegration, Buddy just so happens to be the last hope for humanity. And since the world is populated exclusively by Minecraft YouTubers, the fact that she's 13 doesn't seem to bother anybody. After one particularly long day of neglecting his child and popping pills like a true American, Brad comes home to find that Buddy has been taken, and he sets off on a journey to get her back. Along the way, Brad meets a colorful cast of characters, including, but not limited to, an alcoholic, a weeaboo, a talking fish, and the Power Rangers. Oh, and man-made horrors beyond comprehension. I almost forgot them. Lisa takes place in Olathe, a real-life place that I've cautiously driven through with my windows rolled up, careful not to make eye contact with the locals many times. And let me tell you, the downgrade is not that bad. People think this setting is apocalyptic, while in reality, Kansas just kinda looks like that sometimes. The only difference is that Kansas doesn't normally have this many hills. Olathe is a deeply sinister land, and only the most brave and foolish of men would be willing to traverse such a place. This remains true after the end of the world as well. Your journey will be hard, the path before you will be treacherous, and unlike the real Olathe, there won't be a single Dollar Tree to help you along the way. The local Burger King has been renovated into a Russian roulette house. Instead of gambling on whether or not you'll be getting food poisoning from a rancid Whopper, you're gambling with human lives. Lisa is, for the most part, your standard RPG affair, but by affair, I'm speaking of the marital kind. This game will steal your wife and raise your kids as its own. Every level, every encounter, every character is designed to be a new and fresh way of kicking you in the balls. This game hates you, and it isn't afraid of letting you know this in the most horrible, excruciating ways possible. It's right there in the title. This game is painful. Combat is a pretty straightforward turn-based system. You've got your basic attacks and your special attacks, which consume your special bar. Unless you're an alcoholic, in which case you use a different bar that charges up when taking or dealing damage. Brad himself has a unique combat style called Armstrong style, which the wiki describes as a mixture of karate and pain. Seeing as most of your moves involve you hurling yourself at enemies at increasingly high speeds, this makes sense. There's also items and special abilities that you can use to heal, buff yourself, or debuff enemies. You've got pretty much all the basic status effects you might expect from an RPG, like, poison, burning, stunned, crying, stinky, cool, super cool, and oiled up? There's also a guard option, but I never actually used it because I'm not a coward. The best defense is a relentless, bloody onslaught of an offense. Enemy health bars are invisible, so you'll never know just how strong an enemy is until they wipe your entire team and force you to load a save. Again, a painful game. Despite the relatively simple combat mechanics, encounters are varied and unique enough to where I never really got bored with it. Along the way, you will almost certainly lose allies. Whether they get hit with a permakill attack or simply abandon you in the night, your party will fluctuate randomly as you go. It is important to know that Lisa the Painful can be made not quite so painful, if you so desire. You see, there's another way. Why not give in to temptation? The world is rough, and if you want to make it, why not give yourself an advantage with just a little bit of performance-enhancing, reality-altering drugs? Just pop one little pill and you'll be cruising on Easy Street. Drugs make you stronger, which I find kind of funny because all they did for my dad was make him lay on the floor a lot. Just remember, every drug has side effects. Personally, I avoid the stuff because
winners don't do drugs.
Avoiding using joy also means that you'll be dealing with withdrawal periodically throughout the game, which drops all of your stats and reduces your damage to 0, so have fun with that. You know, I can actually sympathize with Brad here a little bit. I used to vape, so I kinda get it. It's like, no, don't put that sweet, delicious Alto in my mouth, please. I don't want to experience the unrivaled sensation of a nicotine buzz, I'm begging you. Navigating the Olathian wasteland is a challenge in and of itself. Pitfalls and traps litter every corner of the world. One false move and you'll find yourself falling to your death. You'll quickly find that your greatest enemy in this game is curiosity. I can assure you there is absolutely nothing to be curious about. Each new area that you find will only serve to hurt you. Play it safe, don't go outside, don't talk to people, and whatever you do, don't look inside that truck. Rest and respite is hard to come by in Lisa. Sure, you can make camp and recover anytime you want, but sleeping alone in an apocalyptic land filled with people that make Mad Max look like a sitcom comes with unforeseen consequences. You will have to rest eventually, but at some point you'll have to make the decision whether or not to push forward just a little bit more, or bite the bullet, make camp, and roll the dice. Anything can happen to you in the night, and there's nothing you can do about it. This game is built to crush you. It's made with the pure and unyielding desire to see you fail. If I could check myself into a battered men's shelter because of this game, I would. However, it makes the feeling all the more sweeter when you finally, after all the brutal and torturous trials, win. Consider this game one very, very long Dark Souls boss. You're meant to fail. You're meant to want to quit. But sticking through it and overcoming that is where the enjoyment lies. That and the motorcycle section. That shit rocks. You may or may not be able to tell from the gameplay provided, but Lisa is not what I would describe as a visually complicated game. Landscapes are simple and straightforward, but that doesn't mean that the game doesn't have its moments of subtle beauty. The lack of fine detail in the game means that the detail that is there is always done deliberately. Every little ingredient of the environment is done with a purpose, and there are a lot of secrets to be found just by keeping an eye out. I explored every nook and cranny I could in this game, and I'm still pretty sure I missed like half of it. Lisa is a master of what we in the business refer to as environmental storytelling. The world is alive, even when you aren't around to see it. Events can happen entirely off screen, and you'll only ever witness the aftermath of it, usually in the form of copious numbers of corpses. Character designs at first glance are pretty wacky. They will continue to be so on subsequent glances, but they are visually appealing in their own way. Every party member is visually distinct, and usually manages to convey some aspect of their personality with their design. Look at this guy and tell me you don't know what he's all about. Brad himself follows this rule perfectly. Look at that mug. There's practically zero discernible facial features to be seen here, but you can tell exactly what he's thinking right now. Good on the developer for making a character look exactly how I feel while playing this game. And then there's the other side of the spectrum, where certain enemies look like the kind of things that visit me in my nightmares. Generally, the threat that an enemy presents to you can be assumed from just how downright scary looking it is, though there are exceptions. The land of Olathe is about as hospitable looking as my drug dealer's house. There's garbage everywhere, and junkies roam the general area looking to stick you with whatever needle isn't currently embedded in their forearm. Everywhere you go, there will be peer pressure, wrestling fans, and bad vibes all around. Nowhere is safe, except for, ironically enough, the trash island. The only hostility to be found there comes from man's primordial desire for healthy shopping cart-based competition. Lisa has a soundtrack that I can only describe as a schizophrenic mix of jazz, rave, synthwave, and video game chiptunes. Every song on this soundtrack is a certified banger. I'd call them hood classics, but I don't have that authority. This guy apparently does though, so take his word for it. Even the songs that feel as though they should be grating just kind of work. I unironically enjoy all of these songs and I won't apologize for it. Except for this one. I hate this. Please stop. Besides that thing, this is probably one of my favorite game soundtracks of all time. I feel like I'm about to have a nervous breakdown every time I listen to it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. If you ever feel like giving yourself a panic attack, just put this soundtrack on shuffle, lay down, close your eyes, and say hello to the Hat Man. Sound design beyond the music is incredibly sparse and quiet. It adds to the feeling of loneliness, especially when the soundtrack cuts out and all you hear are the sounds of your footsteps, marching ever onward towards your goal. The game knows exactly when to use these moments of silence to its advantage. Like when finishing an especially difficult fight, the game can go from the loud, bombastic battle music to absolute and utter silence. It gives you a moment to bask in your own victory, while at the same time being just a little bit unsettling, a sensation that this game excels at. Voice acting is... Wait. There are no voice actors. I always talk about voice actors. What do I do here? I can't just leave this blank. Does this count as voice acting? I really don't have that much to say in the way of criticism here. It's a great game. I can list a few small nitpicks though. I encountered a couple bugs here and there, nothing game-breaking by any means, but you'd expect a smaller game like this to be a bit more polished. The timing window of this specific attack in the DLC was wonky, and it didn't actually line up with the indicator. The ability to skip dialogue would have been kinda nice, especially since there were a couple times where I had to sit through it twice due to loading a save. Also, I've taken the liberty of zooming in the camera a bit for the viewing experience, but just know that the game actually looks like this. I get it's supposed to be retro and it doesn't really bother me, but a full screen option would have been nice. There is an option to stretch the pixels to fit the screen, but it looks like doo-doo. I'm sorry, I can't play like this. That's really it though. I don't have anything else to criticize. Except for this song. God, I hate this song! I will take just the briefest moment to also say that this game does get pretty damn dark at times as well. I think it's pretty well implied by the very premise of the story that this won't be the most fun romp through the apocalypse. I mean, you're on a mission to save a child from a world of sneakos. I don't think I have to explicitly state the sort of thing that gets explored, but needless to say, the game doesn't shy away from the consequences of that concept. The game also touches pretty heavily on topics like abuse, neglect, addiction, and mutilation. Keep that in mind before buying. I'm not criticizing the game for this, but I felt it important to point out to anyone who might be interested in the game. I do feel like Lisa turned out to be Undertale's forgotten little cousin. Undertale, of course, just being earthbound for Tumblr users, aka the mentally deranged. How do I even navigate this hellhole of a website? I'm not saying I don't like Undertale. I like it quite a lot, actually, but it does kinda suck to see a game that I consider to be far better in pretty much every way cast by the wayside because, you know, Markiplier didn't play it. Alright, I've managed to insult Undertale, Tumblr, and Markiplier in a single paragraph. I imagine this will be my final video, because I can already hear the hit squad knocking on my door. It's been a pleasure, everyone. While I understand that this game may not be everyone's cup of tea, I do believe that there is a such thing as a bad opinion. Wrong, even. I might even venture to say downright stinky. Here are some of those opinions. I love this game, but the recent update changes some old content for modern audiences, which I never support. Games are art, and art should be a time capsule of culture and creativity that never changes. The changes this review is referring to is the fact that a single joke was changed in the definitive edition. The joke? A black character gets introduced with a chimpanzee noise. Yeah, I'm actually okay with that change. That's perfectly fine for me. I don't think that a racist joke, and a frankly lazy one at that, is representative of the culture of the time, seeing as minstrel shows have been over for about 100 years now. I'm all for the preservation of art, but if a few years after painting the Mona Lisa, Leonardo da Vinci came along to add a couple more brushstrokes to get rid of the N-word written in the corner, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Interesting story, but the gameplay is highly repetitious and boring. Unless you are a big fan of turn-based combat, you should probably avoid this game. Doesn't that kind of go without saying? Hey, if you don't like games with turn-based combat, then you probably won't like this game with turn-based combat. For what it's worth, I'm not the biggest fan of turn-based combat, and I still manage to enjoy the fighting in this game quite a bit. TLDR. It over-relies on gut-punch emotional reactions despite its incredibly flawed writing, muddling this through its unfocused tone, pacing, and direction, but I guess it's a masterpiece because it's dark and Undertale sucks or something. Look man, if you don't like the writing, that's fine, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that this game is good because Undertale is bad. I said earlier that I like Undertale a lot. I think there's plenty of room in this world for both games. I do think Lisa is better and deserved more attention than it got, but that's just kind of how the industry works. I am a little man screaming at the stars here, which I wouldn't have to do if those cowards would come down and face me like a man. All in all, Lisa is an amazing game that made my depression, worse. Much worse. There are so few games out there that are designed to be more than just a power fantasy. And by God, this game is not a power fantasy. It feels too often that we forget that video games are an art form, and art, by definition, is something meant with the purpose of capturing a sense of beauty and or making you feel a certain way. And Lisa definitely made me feel a certain way. It takes a lot to make my cold, shriveled heart feel something, so anytime a game does, I just have to give it props. Granted, the something I felt playing this game was a deep, unflinching emptiness in the pit of my stomach, but it was something nonetheless. The simultaneously goofy and yet heart-wrenchingly sad world of Lisa is one that I won't soon forget. I speedran the 5 stages of grief playing this game about a dozen times, while also laughing my ass off. And I don't mean that typical LMAO that you say over text when in reality you, at best, just breathed a little bit more heavily through your nose. I actually legitimately laughed out loud at this game, and I actually legitimately got a little misty-eyed too. Lisa speaks to me on a deep, personal level. So, if that sounds like something you're down for, then I wholeheartedly, 100% recommend Lisa the Painful. Thanks for watching, gang. As always, it means the world to me. Shout out to the guy from my comment section for recommending this game to me. Thank you. I enjoyed every bit of it, and you ruined my life. If you'd like to suggest a game for review, maybe check out the community Discord, where we have a specific channel just for that purpose. And while you're there, why not stick around and chat? We'd love to have you. That's all for me this time around, gang. One love. See ya.